Patricia de Lille at the Cape Town High Court. The full bench sitting started yesterday and is expected to listen to several de Lille matters, including her cessation of membership by the DA. Earlier, de Lille's legal counsel concluded its arguments, making emphasis on a flawed and unconstitutional process followed by the DA to axe her. Mayor Patricia de Lille's counsel concluded their arguments this morning, having taken up most of yesterday. Judge Lachonge had decided that they would be given an opportunity to finish today. Senior counsel Johan de Waal concluded points focused on the constitutionality of the DA's Federal Legal Commission. Representing the DA, Senior Counsel Sean Rosenberg also started his arguments today. He's been focusing on the relationship between the party and its members, arguing for the clause used by the party to axe de Lille. The sitting is expected to conclude today. Well, for more on this, we cross to our reporter Nomawethu Sowande in Cape Town. Nomawethu, what is happening over there?
Very good afternoon to you. Well, this morning started with SC de Waal concluding his arguments from yesterday. His focus today was on the formation of the Federal Legal Commission, whose duty was to decide whether or not Mayor Patricia de Lille's membership would be seized or not. Now, what de Waal was actually arguing was that the formation of the FLC was in fact illegal. Now, because he was concluding, it was the start of the DA's SC to argue this morning in court. And what SC Rosenberg was actually arguing was that the Constitution in its very self is contractual. That means there are contractual principles that have to be abided by. And if Mayor Patricia de Lille is part of an organization, she then has to abide by the rules of those of that organization. So her saying that if or when she clears her name, she would resign, and this is against the principles of the party, then her membership should indeed cease. Now, joining me once again is the DA's Federal Executive Deputy Chairperson, Natasha Mazzone. It's such a mouthful, I always get it wrong. Thank you so much for joining us this afternoon. You know, there was a lot of emphasis on the Federal Legal Commission here this morning. What's your take on everything that SC de Waal said?
Well, I think it's very interesting to note that our Federal Legal Commission is exceptionally precise in how it's formulated, in how its rules are put together. And when you join the Democratic Alliance, you sign a code of conduct. And one of the things that the code of conduct says is that you abide by the rules of the FLC. Now, it must not be ignored that these rules are available to all members of the party. They're on our website. We all know about these rules. Certainly FedEx deals with these rules at length and in detail very often. Mayor de Lille, having been a member of the Federal Executive of the Democratic Alliance for a substantial period of time, having herself dealt with these rules for many years. And exactly what you said earlier, our counsel arguing that this is a contractual relationship, and when you join the DA, you join so knowing that there are certain rules that you abide by. And certainly if the FLC does have a case against you, one of the things that they do is when they bring you your disciplinary summons, they give you, just in case you needed a new copy, an actual copy of the rules. So no one in the Democratic Alliance does not have the rules of the FLC and is not privy to the rules of the FLC.
Now, Ms. Mazzone, one thing that SC de Waal did focus on, he actually read the criteria on how the FLC is formed. And then he said that he had evidence that, in fact, in the case of Mayor Patricia de Lille, this criteria wasn't followed. What is your take on that?
Well, it's his argument that it was his interpretation that the criteria wasn't filled. Our advocate this afternoon will argue why he felt that it was criteria that was filled. You must understand that these advocates are both doing their job. The one is defending their client, the other is defending their clients. And so this afternoon you'll see how arguments are counted with different points of view. Pieces will be offered up to the court as part of evidence. This is all part of the court procedure as it unfolds, but each one of the advocates doing what they're supposed to be doing. We know from our side, from the Democratic Alliance side, that the FLC is correct correctly constituted. It is constituted according to a very strict criteria that would enable us, we would not be able to not constitute it correctly. So we have full faith that it is properly constituted, and we will be able to prove that later on today.
Now, up until now, Mayor Patricia de Lille has maintained that she has not been found guilty of anything, but still she was axed. What's your take on that?
You see, the interesting thing is this. No one in the Democratic Alliance or anyone else could have reasonably foreseen the fact that Mayor de Lille would go on Eusebius Makaiza's show and resign in the manner which she did. At that particular point when she resigned and the complaint was brought to the FLC, and the FLC found that according to our rules, if you utter or you make your intention to resign made known publicly, then your membership ceases. None of us could have foreseen that she was going to do that. So at that point, the disciplinary fell away because she was no longer a member of the DA. I couldn't have reasonably foreseen that she was going to resign, neither could you. But at that point, your disciplinary falls away. So, to now say that, she wants the disciplinary hearing, she shouldn't have gone on the Eusebius show and resigned in the manner in which she had, and then the case would have continued. So it wasn't us that stopped the case. By virtue of the fact that she resigned, her membership ceased, thus stopping the case from being heard.
Now, another thing, last question before I let you go, that the judges were questioning was how this clause was used, making mention of people like Mr. Maimani, Ms. Van Damme, where they've made similar statements before, but their memberships were never seized. What's your take on this?
Well, it's a conditional thing that you have to look at, and you have to look at it in context. And that's why throughout this court case, you will see the judges don't refer to a line of the conversation with Eusebius or a section. They deal with the conversation in its entirety. Now, the same thing with what Van Damme said. It was said in a confidential meeting, and it was not said in public, and that's very important to note. It was something that was leaked out, so it can't be seen as being a public utterance. What Musi said was in certainly no way detrimental to the Democratic Alliance. In fact, it showed his complete and utter loyalty to the Democratic Alliance in terms of his accountability, and it certainly was taken out of context in what he said. And that is specifically why the judges have insisted that when they deal with the Eusebius interview, they are not going to deal with a single line. They are going to deal with it in its entirety and in full context.
Well, thank you very much for your time once again. That there was the Deputy Chairperson of the DA's Federal Executive, Natasha Mazzone, giving us her view on how things are going here at the Cape High Court. We're expecting SC Rosenberg to continue his arguments for the DA just after lunch. And basically, his focus has been that, if you're part of an organization, then you have to abide by the principles of those of that organization. Of course, he's talking about the interview that Mayor Patricia had on Radio 702 with Eusebius Makaiza, where she had made mention that as soon as she cleared her name, she would then resign from the DA. With that, it's back to you in the studio.
Thanks very much, our reporter Nomawethu Sawande, reporting on the de Lille case. We're going to go for a brief break. Do stay with us.